All right, I'm going to do the same lecture in English so that you can understand it better. I'm not going to go into the details of justifying why I think this is a good idea, because I'm one of those people that when they start trying to justify things just cannot shut up. If you're looking for interesting ideas about Heidegger, this is not the video for you. This is just a translation of a lecture I gave in ancient Greek, in which I struggled to understand the ideas of Heidegger in a language much more difficult than English. Good. So I talked a little bit about the differences between analytic and continental philosophy. Analytic philosophers, they're only interested in language and logic and the meaning of terms. They're not interested in the present world, political, how best to construct a political state, how to achieve happiness, none of that. Continental philosophers, on the other hand, are. There's almost just as much in common between mathematicians and historians as there are between continental and analytic philosophers. Is this a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. I didn't say this in Greek, but a lot of analytic philosophers believe, or continental philosophers believe, this is a bad thing, that these two groups are not talking to each other, but this is no problem. The only reason why we think that there's commonality between these two is because they're often use the same concepts. They often talk about truth, justice, and meaning. But the continental philosophers, to go one step further and try to use those concepts to come up with solutions for living better in the world. Whether or not they do this, I really don't know, because I don't study them that much. Good. Heidegger, one of his neologisms was Dasein. The difference between the two is Dasein is the ability of a being to think about its own being, what it's doing here, what's the meaning of life, what it should do. That's what Dasein is, and I think this is a legitimate neologism. Heidegger did not like metaphysics. He thought it was a cliche, worn out, not very clear. I, however, have no problem with it. For me, it's the analysis of concepts, or at least a subset of what I'm doing is analysis of concepts. Good. When Heidegger's book was published, there were critics, notably Karl Loveth, a student of his at the University of Marburg. I lived in Marburg for 2 weeks, which is an interesting story to say the least, but off topic. Karl Loveth thought that Heidegger's vision of man treated them too much like instruments. There was another critic named Watsuji in Japan. He thought that Heidegger put too much emphasis on time, not enough emphasis on space. The Japanese word is fudo, which can also be translated as environment, climate, even milieu. I forget what the German name is. Heidegger did not finish his book. In part 2, he wanted to talk more about, hold on, good. He didn't finish the second part of his book because he thought, he considered some of the criticisms of his critics, and he thought maybe the problem was a little bit more difficult than he thought it would be. So we looked at the philosophy of Kant, who thought that you needed to return to the source of being. I, for one, don't believe you can do that. You can't return to being. You can't go away from it. We're always in being. I asked Ferran about this, and he somewhat agreed with me. You don't have to agree with everything a philosopher says in order to find them interesting. I'll go even one step further. I didn't say this in Greek, but if you do agree fully with a philosopher, then something's wrong with you. Heidegger, however, didn't like Thomas, well, he wanted to study Kant. He also wanted to study Thomas Aquinas. He thought Thomas Aquinas might have some solutions for using these concepts, these ideas to obtain happiness. However, Heidegger felt that Aquinas put too much emphasis on, let's just say, existence and not enough on being. I don't think there's a difference between the two, but apparently Heidegger thought that being was deeper than existence. We're going to talk more about this, hopefully, Ferran and I in the future. Later on, Heidegger does say that being is inexplicable, maybe even apophatic, if you, well, it's a Greek word. You should know what apophatic means. Well, even maybe if you do know Greek, you don't know what apophatic means, but it means you cannot talk about it. So I think this is a contradiction because Heidegger believes that being is deeper than existence, but now he's saying that it's apophatic. So which is it? I, for one, believe that being is an element. You can't analyze it into more basic elements. You can divide existence into groups. You can divide the members of existence into groups, and you can build an ontology with them, such as cats are types of mammals, mammals are types of animals. You can say, all right, we've got 4 types of things. We've got matter, mind, God, and then we got abstract objects. Perhaps abstract objects are effects of the mind. You can build an ontology like that, but you can't state what is more fundamental than existence. Good. Kant or Wasuji, I don't know which one. Maybe even Heidegger thought that there was an end to existence, thought that mankind was progressing towards some kind of final goal. I don't believe this. I think the end of existence is when we all die. I asked for descriptions, concrete descriptions of what this end might be. I didn't get any. Another one of Heidegger's controversial ideas is we don't live in the world, but it turns out that this is just a metaphor, which is if we're alienated in the world, we're not living in it, which is not all that ridiculous. It's just a metaphor. It's just a different way of saying we're living alienated in the world. Where he was going with that idea, we didn't get to talk about that. Heidegger also talked about living in the center of existence. And again, this is a metaphor. But it, we didn't get to talk more about what that metaphor was supposed to accomplish. That's everything. So there you go. I summarized what I said in Greek in 8 minutes, what it took me 32 minutes to say in Greek.